Welcome to our Tragedy to Triumph podcast special edition. This is our book review. This is our second chapter of Nobody's Ever Cried for Me. And so our last episode, we went through kind of how the book was written. And now we're on to our second chapter, but also touching base more about high school assemblies. So anyway, I'm here with Dave Roever, my father and cohort in crime. We have been, it's been exciting to go through these books together, chapter by chapter, kind of getting an idea of the theme behind the book, as well as really each chapter has its own, special message.
The thing about the book, Nobody's Ever Cried for Me, they've cried because of me, but not for me. That was not my statement. That statement was from a little 15-year-old girl I mentioned in the last podcast.
Right.
She had been raped by her stepfather. And as we said in that podcast, I repeat for this one, two places to have scars. On the outside like me, or on the inside like you, that person driving to work, coming home from work, sitting in a hotel room with whiskey pills and a pistol. You need to hear me. Everybody gets hurt. That's not the question in life. The question in life is when you get hurt, how are you going to deal with it? And this book is a book. I don't want to leave you with an impression that I'm some kind of a clinical aid to help you get through a tough time in life by chapter 1, verse 1, line 1. Take this pill, verbal pill, and swallow it and see if that helps. I'm not a clinic. I'm not writing from a psychologist or psychiatrist point of view. I'm really not writing from a point of view of any professional. I'm writing from a point of view of a man that's been there, done that, and continues to be there doing that. I've been speaking in school since 1976. There's hardly a story I hadn't heard of broken kids. Yeah. Broken.
Yeah.
The thing they identify with me is I'm scarred. They see on the outside of me what they see on the inside of themselves.
Right. When they look in the mirror, it is they don't see what we see. I've over the years have met some of the most beautiful people on the outside, right? Beautiful. And they can't see the beauty in themselves, right? All they see is the scars, the flaws.
I look in the mirror and your mother, my late wife, she used to tell me, you're overly concerned about your appearance. I would respond with, well, you don't know how I feel until you've been in my face. And I, to this day, sitting behind this mic on this podcast, have never learned how to accept me. I don't even know how to love me.
And see, this is why I love that we're having conversations like this. A lot of times when people hear you speak publicly, they, at a church or in a high school assembly, they don't always get to hear some of these things, right? They don't get to hear you say, I have never been comfortable in my own skin since the day of my injury.
Yeah.
Right? Were you comfortable? It's kind of a crazy thing to ask, but I think you are an incredibly handsome young man, looking at your teenage pictures in your early 20s when you and mama were, getting married. And I saw those photos, handsome, super handsome. And I've heard you talk about just, from that moment of injury, losing your identity, which we talked about in the last episode. But that is, how do you recover from just, not being comfortable in your skin? I love that you said that. I love that you're bringing that up because that's important for people to hear.
That's part of my recovery. I've not recovered, past tense. I am recovering. It's not AA. It's not
a 12-step program of recovery.
This is a baby step program every day of my life. And I look better now than I've looked in years and years because now I have a nose. Now I have eyelids. Now I have lips. Now I can turn my head because of surgeries that have put Humpty Dumpty back together again to the best of their ability. And I like to tell the story of one of my surgeries I came out, it was so horrible. I'm not going to get into the whole thing because I want to say that for another podcast, but it was so horrible that I thought I would never speak publicly again. And I was introduced to a program with Gary Sinise, Lieutenant Dan.
Yeah, from Forrest Gump.
Yeah, and he and I became very good friends, very close. I loved him, and he loves the troops. He's one in a zillion.
Yeah, he has a heart.
I couldn't
for
endorse
veterans.
a man more. I love him so much. I love his heart. And he wanted me to be introduced to a program, Snowball Express or Snowball something for children. And they had Runner-Up Miss America introduced me. I'd just come off the table. I was wearing half a mask. I should have been in the musical.
Oh, Phantom of the Opera.
Phantom of the Opera. I actually tried his mask, but it's the wrong half of my face. What luck is that? I remember getting there, and the president of American Airlines, who was sponsoring the event, said, Dave, I know it's tough, man. It's got to be hurt. There's got to be a lot of pain. You got to be hurting. I lied right through this crack in my teeth. I said, no, sir, man, I'm good. I wasn't good. Inside, I was dying 1,000 deaths. Here, I just come off the table after 50 surgeries. That was number 50. And it was horrible. And now I'm being introduced by Runner-Up Miss America. I mean, one of the most beautiful women I've ever seen in my lifetime. We walk out together, I'm thinking, good Lord, these kids are going to look up here. 3,000 mamas and their children, all Gold Star families whose dad had been lost in the war, killed in the war. I thought those kids are going to look up here and see her. They're going to look at me and they're going to think, it's a production of The Beauty and the Beast. I actually thought that, and then I bust out laughing inside because I couldn't. People thought I'd lost my mind, just start laughing on my way out on the stage. I thought, I can't call her a beast. And you know what? Every day of my life, Kim, and you've seen me struggle, no one knows more of the struggle than you do. Every day of my life, I have to come back from below zero to 100%.
Yeah.
Below zero.
Yeah.
What other little girl stood outside my door, sat down outside my bedroom door, crying her little eyes out, saying, Jesus, don't let Daddy hurt himself. You could hear me ranting and raving in that bedroom, trying to convince your mama it was okay if I killed myself. I just couldn't live with what I was. But somehow, between God, Jesus, and your mama, I'm here today. And God answered your little girl prayer.
He did. He did. Well, I know I know that trauma begets trauma. I do know that. I know that
hurt people.
Hurt people. And a lot of times it is inadvertently. You know, it's not meant to hurt anybody else, but it is kind of our nature as humans to, you know, when you poke a bear, you get a response sometimes that is dangerous. Speaking of responses, in chapter 2 of Nobody's Ever Cried for Me, which I am very excited that we're going through today. Chapter 2, the title of this chapter is great. It's called Captain Crunch.
That was a turning point.
Not to be mistaken for the cereal. However, I think it's hilarious that, and I know you're going to get in to tell us who Captain Crunch is, but I want to read an excerpt from the book here really quick, and then we'll go from there because I think this is going to be really interesting because I think the theme of this chapter, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it really deals a lot with people's perception of us, and if we allow that to dictate who we become, right? This is what somebody thinks of me, and if they think badly of me, then that's the truth, and I'm just going to accept it and go along. But let me read this, and then let's go from there because I want to hear what you have to say about Captain Crunch because this is a person. I hate being told no. All my life, it's bothered me. When people have said, you can't, I've set out to prove that I can. Week after week, I lay in my hospital bed feeling helpless and almost hopeless. All I needed to make my day was some overzealous staff psychologist who thought she knew it all to step up to my bed and say to her assistant, this one is psychologically raped. he'll never be anything. The woman who made this pronouncement was an Army captain. 2 bars on her hat and everything. She was also our physical therapist. She crunched on our brains and she crunched on our fingers, and we called her Captain Crunch. So, interesting woman, it sounds like. But tell me about how you interacted with her. What was your first time meeting her, and how did this come to be?
Well, let me back up a little bit and tell you a little. It's not even in this chapter of the book, but it helps you understand this chapter. They brought in a lot of people to entertain us. They brought in girls in bikinis into an all-men's ward. They'd strut up and down that ward, and guys that fall out of bed do more damage than put them in the hospital to start with. And so we were used to people coming up and talking to us, but they were always encouraging us, trying to give us words of hope. And here comes this Army captain, this psychiatrist. She stops at my bed with her little number 2 pencil and her pad, and she says to her associate, "This one is psychologically raped. You'll never be anything." When I heard that, it didn't sit well with me.
Oh, I'm sure.
It was a hand grenade in my emotional mind, not just my body, that put me there to start with. I reacted instantaneously without any control or self-restraint. I burst out of that bed, standing in front of her, shaking my fist in her face. The fingers, which were very delicately sewed back on, now were hanging by skin. They came loose. My thumb was dangling again by a tendon. Blood started shooting out of an open artery. I swished my hand back and forth, inadvertently putting a big Z on her smuck, or whatever you call that. It looked like Zorro did her. And I screamed, "I will be something. Don't tell me I won't be anything." I was something. I was naked. I didn't know I was naked. They didn't have clothes on me. They didn't tell me they had no clothes on me. I'm standing there naked. I was embarrassed. I crawled back in bed. I remember her screaming as she ran down the hall, "Feet don't fail me now." That day, I don't know, maybe she was such a good psychologist, psychiatrist, whatever she was. Maybe she was good. So good that she knew I needed something to challenge me. That's the first time I got out of bed without any help.
Wow.
First time I stood on my own 2 feet without anybody holding me up. Even though I was naked, I was something.
Yeah.
I was naked and embarrassed, naked and afraid.
Yeah.
But she got me out of that bed. Good reason or bad reason, I don't know. I'll never know to this day. But don't tell me I can't. I can do all things through Christ,
Who gives?
who strengthens me.
Yep. And I think the lesson for us to learn as people who love someone who's been hurt, someone who's been injured. So, being the wife of a firefighter for, over 26 years, my husband has been in the department. There's been a lot of things that he has seen that all first responders see, things that they won't forget. Your mind can't forget those things. And it is easy, again, when you're talking about hurt people, you bring stuff home, you don't want to talk about it, you bury it. And when you're hurt and you're injured, I think there is something to learn as, I don't want to say as a caregiver, but I am a caregiver to my husband emotionally, right? I'm sent to love on him and to help him and encourage him. And you were talking about in the ward how some of the girls in the bikinis or people who would come through, their job was to encourage. And sometimes that's really hard to do or hard to break through. How do you, as a caregiver, as as someone who loves your husband or your father or your son, how do I reach somebody like that? I mean, you just mentioned that maybe the psychiatrist, maybe she did that on purpose, but what's some good tips to help somebody like that?
The worst thing you can do is pity somebody.
Right.
Pity produces self-pity. Self-pity produces laziness. Sitting around doing nothing because you've already convinced yourself you'll never succeed. Poor me. I'm just going to eat worms and die. Well, here's some poor me for you. You got it backwards. You die, then the worms eat you.
Yeah.
How's that for pity? The Bible teaches us, I think Paul wrote it, said that we should comfort one another with the same comfort we've been comforted with. And how do you comfort people? Well, you got to figure out what the word comfort means. To answer your question, how do you comfort? How do you help? How do you give care? The word comfort in the original Greek does not mean what it means in Spanish, pobrecito, which to me is poor little boy, poor little girl, pobrecita.
Poor thing.
Poor thing, pat you on the head and pity you. No, comfort is strong words of encouragement. Look it up in the Greek, comfort. It's not what we think it is. There's a graphic painting somewhere, I've never seen or heard about, of George Washington helping a wounded soldier back up on the horse. Not taking him off the horse, putting him on the horse. And the caption underneath says, "The general comforts a soldier." So what is comfort? In our modern world, you get hurt in the military. They take you off the horse, out of the cockpit of the airplane, off the boat, out of the tank, and they put you on a stretcher. And then they put you before a board of doctors, and they consider your damage from what you were going in at 100%. What percent of you does not function anymore? If it's 100% non-function, you get 100% retirement pay medically. If you're 50% functional, you only get 50% retirement pay medically. In other words, they're saying, pobrecito, here, you're a poor little thing. We'll give you money to help make up for your pain. They couldn't give me enough money to go through one day of children looking at me screaming and running and hiding. Oh, it's better now, but it wasn't when you were a child. And it's only been better since about the last 5, 6, 7 years. So instead of saying poor thing as they take you off the horse, put you on a stretcher, I'm saying get off the stretcher, get back on that horse. You're not dead yet. You still have something to give. Take the pain you've known and use it against those that gave you that pain. Right. That's why I'm in Vietnam today. That's why we have K through 12 schools in Vietnam. That's why we have Global REAP University, Reaver Educational Assistance Programs, REAP. That's why we have 280,000 students training for ministry.
Yeah, that's right.
In Vietnam. I'm not going to lay in some stupid bed and do nothing because I got hurt.
Right.
Good Lord, I've got a whole reason to get out of bed.
Right.
And I'm saying to somebody listening to me right now, listening to this podcast, stop feeling sorry for yourself. Comfort is to say, you can make it. Your experience is a reason to get out of bed because somebody's going through the same thing you've been through and you're their last hope. Don't be a voice shut down because you're afraid.
Don't be a Captain Crunch.
Don't be a Captain Crunch. Get out of that bed and do something with what you got.
Well, I'm for our YouTube viewers, I've got a photo that we're putting up right now on the TV. This is of you speaking in a high school assembly.
Yeah.
And what I love about this picture is these kids are hanging. They're hanging on every word that you have to say. And I have seen this so many times in the airport. We're walking through, to catch a flight, and somebody will stop you and say, "You came and spoke in my school in 1980 something."
I hear it every
you
day.
Came to my. It is like every single time where people come up, they stop you everywhere we are. You spoke in my school, and they always come back to the same joke, and we've talked about this every single time. They're like, "I will never forget your joke where you say that you played the piano by ear and you took it off and you played Mary Had a Little Lamb," and they still laugh. It just, tears of laughter running down their face, just of the impact that you have had about not feeling sorry for yourself, pulling yourself together, leaning on God, leaning on your family, telling your story, because in that there's healing. Every time you tell your story, I feel like you get a little more healed. A little more restored every time.
Do. That's very good observation, especially from a daughter. That's a good observation because it's not just the people I'm trying to restore. I'm trying to restore myself. And I've thought about this many, many times, Kim. Why do I actually do this? First of all, I'm asked to. Secondly, I leap for the opportunity because somebody is listening that's going to have the audacity to test my philosophy of life that I'm living in front of them. I'm not telling them what to do. I'm showing them what to do just by showing up. And I have the same response. I've pulled up many a McDonald's window. Oh, you're that guy that plays the piano by ear.
They don't remember your name.
Yeah, I could walk on water and they put on my tomb, played the piano by ear.
Yeah.
But you know what, Kim? I'm the recipient of the blessing because not only do I get to offload a lot of things that a lot of guys will bury and never. I can't tell you how many people. My dad served Vietnam, but he never talks about it. Well, maybe he didn't talk about it because he never did anything there. I don't know. Maybe he talks about it because everything he did there, he's ashamed of. Maybe he doesn't talk about it because it's such an emotional trauma. He can't deal with remembering it.
Yeah.
I remember the pain. I remember the moment. I never was unconscious. When that hand grenade blew 6 inches from my right ear, I did not go unconscious. I was on fire. I jumped in the water of the river that my boat was floating in. I was on fire, burning in water. White phosphorus grenades burn in water. I burned in the water. I remember everything.
Yeah.
How can I talk about it? Because that day in Goshen, Indiana, when the first time I was ever invited to speak in a school, I said yes. And I did. By the way, when I got through speaking, the president of the senior class came and said, would you speak at our graduation? I just checked with our principal who was auditing the class. And he said, it's okay to ask you, would you come? I said, sure. Well, that was mid-semester, before the end of that semester and graduation, kids start talking about it. Instead of having graduation indoors in the gym, which would seat about 1,000, it went outdoors into the football stadium, and they had tens of thousands of people come. Not because I'm good looking, not because I'm military strong. I have to sit down to talk. I'm in a wheelchair most of the time. Not because of my academic achievements. I tell everybody I was in the top 10% of the lower 1/3 of my class. Why do they come? Because the world is looking for somebody to give them comfort. Get up, get out, and get going, and stop feeling sorry for yourself. You've got too much to give, and you've learned through your experience what somebody else going through the same thing you're going through needs to hear. Comfort someone else with the comfort wherewith you've been comforted. Encourage someone else with the encouragement you've been encouraged with. Does that make sense?
I love it. I love it. And that's what you've been doing in 56 years of telling your story, of chasing after your calling to minister to others, Dad. It's a remarkable thing. And I encourage everybody who has a story to tell it.
Tell it. Write it down. Put it on tape. Do it.
Yeah.
Put it on video.
Yeah.
Let somebody be healed.
Absolutely.
Because of you.
Absolutely. Well, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for all of our listeners for joining us on episode number 2 of Nobody's Ever Cried for Me. If you are interested in getting a copy of the book, you can go to daveroever.org, DAVEROEVER.org, and pick up your copy. We'll
and
get it shipped.
Subscribe on YouTube,
subscribe.
please.
Yeah.
Listen, I hope people will take what we're doing here. If you've been in any way encouraged, share it with a friend.
Absolutely.
And tell them to share it with a friend.
Yeah.
Let's get this word out. We're a generation of broken people. We're generations of broken people. And then along came Jesus. And Humpty Dumpty's, well, like I told that group of kids at the Gary Sinise Foundation event, Humpty Dumpty fell off the wall. Humpty Dumpty had a big fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men been trying to put Humpty Dumpty back together again. They'll never succeed. But then one day, along came the king, and Humpty's back in style. DaveRoever.org. Put us on your subscription list. Let us continue to be a difference in your life too.
Absolutely. Well, we hope we see you again on chapter 3, which is coming up here on our next podcast, and it's called Assume the Position. We'll see you then. Have a great day.